Hello everyone and welcome to my review of this quirky lens Helios 40-2, the new version. That would be a safe bet if I would say every amateur photographer on this planet at least knows this lens. This is Helios 44, which comes in gazillions of variations, and they run like huge numbers of productions on this lens. And it usually comes with like M42 mount, and it was like the kit lens for Zenith cameras. So every one of us at least know what this lens is about. This is like a 58 millimeters f2 lens, and it's been widely used, especially since the kind of re-emergence of vintage lenses with the mirrorless culture. So we all know very like much about this one. What we know less about is that this lens had a bigger brother with the same, almost the same optical design, but like scaled up. So this is like 85 millimeters f1.5, and this is the new version. So what is the story of this lens? The story is that, as most of you most probably know, when the Soviets invaded Germany after the Second World War, they took the blueprints of Zeiss optics and they started to create their own copies of these lenses. If I'm correct, the Zeiss Biotar originally was 75 millimeters f1.5. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But still, they had their own copy and made it until almost the end of the 80s, until the late 80s. And it was like a very mechanical, chunky lens and almost exclusively on M42 mount. And it was discontinued until with the popularity of these lenses regained by amateur photographers and people who were really into vintage looks, they ran another round of production with these lenses with newly native mounts. I think they did Nikon F and Canon EF mounts, if I'm correct, but the example I have here is the Nikon F version. This lens is pretty straightforward mechanical lens. It's built like a tank. It's almost 1 kilogram, so this setting is pretty much front heavy. The focus through is around like, if I'm correct, 270 degrees. Let's see. Yeah, like almost 270 degrees almost. And it comes also with this quirky aperture ring that you first set the maximum aperture that you want to like close the lens, and then the quirky part is that, okay, you have a declicked aperture, but when the declicked aperture marker is set to 5.6, it means that the aperture is actually wide open. I don't know if it's visible here, but it's wide open. Let me pull this off. I don't know how visible is that, but when you close the aperture, it's actually set to 1.5. So this is where I close the aperture to 5.6, and then the marker is on 1.5. And this is a lens hood that I bought for this because of the distance between the first element and the filter thread is pretty shallow, and there's no original hood coming with this lens. So I bought this again for a couple of bucks from AliExpress, which also fits the aesthetics of this lens pretty well. I really like using it with this hood, and especially because this lens is really prone to flares. So this is the way I use it. So this is like the description of this lens, what this lens is about. Let's see the philosophy of this lens. This is not like a simple go-to option if you want like an 85 millimeters lens for doing portraits or videography. This is not the lens to go. If you're like an amateur user who once in a while does like a commercial photo shoot, go for this. This is Viltrox autofocus 85 millimeters f2 Evo version with all the technology that you need. like the aperture ring almost declick, but still like performing nice with the function button, really good autofocus, practically usable from f2, really lightweight and really small. So this is like the actual size of this. Let's see how small it is. So if you want something practical, go with one of these, which come very cheaper. Like these are becoming like more and more rare, and they are sold easily by like 500, 600 bucks now, which I think is not a fair price for a lens like this. But this you can get with like, I don't know, 200 bucks, brand new. So again, this is not a functional lens. If you want something that actually goes for you, if you really want a workhorse for portraits, you cannot rely on this, because what this lens does is that it paints for you. This is known as the king of swirl, and when you have too much swirl, you already know that the performance of the lens will be poor. It will be poor, especially in the corners. You won't get anything usable. So they use like a term for these lenses. They call it character sharp, which means that if you put someone in the middle of the frame, you will recognize them. That's kind of the philosophy of character sharp. And it also kind of limits your compositions, because if you put something in the corners of the lens, it would be almost gone with the lack of sharpness, with chroma, with everything. So this is not a practical lens, at least until f4. And from f4, it starts to kind of behave normally like a general vintage lens. Not the best coating, not the most vibrant colors. The colors are a little bit damped. The sharpness is okayish as you approach f4 and then f5.6, which is not something that you won't expect. It's not a big surprise. But we don't buy this lens for f4. We buy it for f1.5 when we get all those beautiful corky images. So again, if you're making up your mind to buy something like this, think twice. This is not something that you can take out on a daily basis. It's really heavy, and combined with a full frame body, which you need to use the best of potential of this lens, because if you have a cropped body, in crop sensor body, you will lose the edges of the image, which is kind of the where the magic of this lens happens. And it's going to be heavy. It's going to be really tough to pull critical focus on this. And before we move to the field and see how this lens behaves in real world situations, I would like to give you a heads up. So I have used this lens on Nikon DSLR bodies because this is like an F mount and it's native to F mount. So I was like happily using it, but it's almost impossible to achieve critical focus through an optical DSLR viewfinder on this, unless you unless you modify your body with those split screens, yeah, like the focus screens that come with like this split thingy in the middle that helps you achieve critical focus. It's almost not viable to use it on DSLR with optical viewfinder. I also used it on Nikon Z6 Mark II. You can absolutely achieve critical focus with those focus magnifier tools, but with the focus peaking, I wasn't really happy with the results. But I use it on Sony bodies, on multiple Sony bodies, Alpha 7 Mark II, Alpha 7 Mark III, Alpha 7R Mark IV, Alpha 7C Mark II. With all those lenses, the focus peaking mechanism was enough to achieve near critical focus. So I would say, again, this is a good combination with the Sony body, but with Nikon bodies, most of the time, especially like on mirrorless Z series, I had to use the focus magnifier because I couldn't really rely on the focus peaking mechanism. So enough talking, let's go to the field and see how this lens performs. Before we go to the field, I will show you like a few examples of what I actually managed to shoot with this lens. As you can see, This lens brings some capacity to create a painting like photo for you, bring some dreamy feel into your photos. And of course it's not sharp, and it also limits your composition capacity in terms that you can almost always only use the center of the image. You cannot really use the corners. So at least the face of your subject should be placed in the middle of the photo. So hello again. We are in the field trying to test this lens. This is the Helios 85 millimeters f1.5, and we are in the field in this beautiful scene in Lyon Confluence. So uh, I have set this lens to critical focus, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take a shot, and then let's see what's happening in the shot, because my tripod is not the best. So here, as you can see in the center, we have like this hazy look. Of course, there's a little bit of flare because we have sunlight coming from this side of the image. And as you can see, as we move towards the corners, everything is almost washed out. We have some detail, the detail is there, but everything is washed out. Like, this is how not sharp this lens is. Again, in the center of the image, it's barely acceptable, it's barely usable in the center of the image, with this huge amount of flare and sort of haze that is on the photo. The detail is there. uh, like, you can see the lens can capture some detail, but there is not enough contrast. So this is what we talk about when we say the lens is character sharp. So what I'm going to do is close down the lens to f2 and try to take the same shot again. At f2, as you can see, contrast is a little bit better, sharpness is a little bit better. Again, as we move towards the edges of the image, the sharpness is just not there. The sharpness is gone. Like, even like the focus is not that good because we have a little bit of field curvature in this lens. So again, everything is problematic. Let's stop down to f2.8. Same frame. Let's see what we got here. As you can see, the sharpness is like getting well. So we have the detail, we have the micro contrast. The lens is doing fine, at least in the centers for a lens coming from this era. But again, in the corners, we don't have like really good image quality. As you can see in the corners, things are not as good. Stepping down to f4. At f4, the lens is quite normal, I would say. Like, this is like how a typical lens behaves. Again, not really good quality in the corners. Like, the corner quality is not that good. See, but better than like what we had at f1.5. But still, the lens is quite usable, let's say. Again, this is like a 36 megapixel sensor, pretty vast image size. So what happens in the corner is not that important for a portrait lens at f4. And let's jump onto f8 and see what do we have at f8. I need to compensate with the shutter speed a little bit. Okay, let's make sure that we are still in critical focus. Yep. Here we have critical focus. So sorry for my tripod. is a bit shaky because this is my lightest tripod and this is like the most portable one. I got better ones, but this one is my go-to tripod for this kind of things. So again, at f8, what we have is like really good image quality. Again, a little bit of flare because the sun is coming directly from that side. And I want to give it a try in another direction and see if I face the same problem with the contrast, because I'm pointing the camera virtually at a light source. What if we move away from the light source? Okay, now I'm facing another direction, trying to do kind of the same shot at infinity focus to see how this lens behaves. Let's again check it out and see how this lens is behaving. Once again, we have a lot of haze. Sharpness, again, this lens is like weirdly sharp because you got the detail, but the macro contrast is so weak. Like the haze effect is so pronounced that you cannot really get anything out of the details. And then as we move to the corners, we see huge amount of coma and like drop of sharpness. But surprisingly, vignette is not disturbing at f1.5, which is not what we expect when we have like a swirly bokeh lens. And also, as you can see, the lines, the flat lines are very flat, so distortion is not a big issue in this lens. So let's give it a try with bokeh and talk a little bit about how we can get the best of the swirly bokeh out of this lens. So I'm aiming my camera at a couple of branches over there that are around like 3 meters away from me, and then I have like a little bit further background in around like 10 meters behind that. And this is sort of the optimal condition to get the swirly effects out of this lens. See like what's happening in the background, those like flowers in the background are turned fully swirly. And this is the optimal distance, because if you change your focus to too close, you know, for example, if you use this lens as the minimum focus, there's like almost no swirl. Everything is washed out. So again, at this distance, you cannot get any swirly bokeh out of it. You need to put your subject around somewhere between 2 meters. Like this is where we start to get the swirly effect. And in 3 meters, you get like, I think the best, the most beautiful and eye-catching swirl. And then it's gone. Like it's almost gone. When you approach the like 8 meters line, the swirl effect is gone. So if you want to get some good swirl out of this lens, you need to put your subject around like 3 to 4 meters, and then you have a bokeh generating background behind you. And now I'm going to run some additional tests to show you how this lens behaves when it's used on a crop factor. So I'm going to set my camera to simulate a crop sensor and compare the results, okay? So now on the same frame, what you see is that you get less of the swirly effect out of the same frame. So my focus is set on around like 3 meters. You don't get that much of the swirl because the swirl happens at the corners of the frame. I will replace my setup to show it better. So I relocated my setup to have a little bit of the swirly stuff, swirly background. And as you can see, the swirl that I get, the quality of the swirl that I get is less pronounced when I'm using it on a cropped sensor. So again, this lens is for someone who uses it on a full frame camera. If you have a crop sensor camera, you cannot really get the most satisfaction out of it. Sorry, but as you can see in the corners, the swirls are not as good. They're simply not as good because they happen at the corners of the frame. Now I'm going to run another test. What if we use a 58 millimeters, which with the crop factor of 1.5 is almost equal to 85 millimeters on a full frame, and see how this behaves to see if this would be a better option for people who have a cropped sensor camera. With this lens, the distances would be a little bit shorter, and you still get a little bit of swirl if you are using it on a crop factor. Like, the swirl is there. Like, I'm not saying it's not there, it's there. You can see it happening on the right side of the image, but it happens in shorter distances, so you need to focus on a little bit closer to get like a little bit more swirl. But again, the swirl is not as pronounced, and I would say if you have a crop factor crop sensor camera, this lens would be enough, because again, the image rendering is okay, and it's relatively sharp at f2, so you can use it at f2, and that would work fine for you. And one last test would be using the 58 millimeters on the full frame sensor. So the last test that we are doing is testing the 58 millimeters on full frame sensor. So let's see how much swirl we can get out of it. As you can see, the swirl is happening, but what is the focus distance? This is around like 1.5 meters. So again, if we want something like a little bit closer, like this is my hand that you can see here, if we want to photograph something closer, like a kind of close-up portraiture, which feels a little bit more intimate and it has more perspective into it, this would be the go-to option, I would say, for a full-frame camera. You still get the swirl, you still get the looks, you still get the vintage character, not as much, but it works perfectly fine. So I would say this 58 millimeters will do most of the job that you expect your Helios 85 millimeters do for you. It's sharper, it's more contrasty, and that's okay. And f1.5 thingy, as you saw, is not that practical unless you sort of wash the picture out with a little bit of grain, to kind of push the dirt under the rug and behave in a way that this was like a vintage photo from the beginning, so we didn't aim for sharpness or etc. So this is the way we should use these lenses. So that was it. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you found this interesting, please give me a like or a comment, or ideally a subscription, so I can make more of these videos for you. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.